All right, we got stocks hanging out near the lows, but not at them, as we're trying to keep things together in the last 25 minutes here. Joining us from CFRA, Aniket Ullal, head of ETF data analytics. Aniket, welcome back to the show. What stands out to you in your world the past week in the realm of ETFs? Are the flows as crazy as the price action?
Well, flows have been strong all this year for ETFs. Oliver, there's a possibility that we may actually see record ETF inflows this year. The record for ETFs in a calendar year is about 900 billion in 1 year. Right now, we're above 400 billion. So on a calendar year basis, still tracking below 900. But we generally tend to see a surge at the end of the year. So it wouldn't surprise me if we actually set a record this year for inflows. So I think just a vote of confidence for the ETF product structure and also reflecting kind of the market sentiment right now.
Okay. And how much of that could shift if big tech doesn't keep doing what it was doing basically every day up until last Thursday?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's been a very momentum tech kind of large cap, mega cap driven market. We still have a positive outlook for the S&P 500, although we do think we may head for kind of a little bit of a summer pullback. But despite that, we're still optimistic on our overall outlook for the market, though, as you said, a lot of it is driven by the big mega cap tech stocks, so we need to keep watching those.
Okay. And the overall kind of U.S. versus rest of world, I mean, it's been pretty much a party in unison this year in terms of returns for most markets. But it seems like, looking from some of your notes, that there's some unique stuff happening in the international flows. Tell me about it.
That's right. If we look at what's happening outside the U.S., there's been actually quite a lot of disparity now, particularly in emerging markets. As you know, historically, China has been a huge component of EM. After China, Asia got added to the EM indices. They went up to almost 30% in weight in the last couple of years. China, as you know, has not been performing as well. It's up about 6% this year. On the other hand, markets like Mexico, India, and others have been performing well. Driven by more positive sentiment, possibility of supply chain reconfiguration. We recently had elections in India, which we can talk about. So we've seen more dispersion amongst emerging markets, and particularly with markets like India and a few other large markets doing particularly well.
When we say particularly well, how well? Are we talking like numbers that are surpassing U.S. flows, or is it more like a rate of growth, like a building interest type of conversation?
I'd say from a return perspective, it's more a building interest perspective. I mean, if you look at the Nifty 50 index, which is the headline index in India, it's up about 12% this year, which is actually below where we are in the US. Surprisingly, in India, a lot of growth has been driven by small caps. So small caps are up about 18% this year, more on par with. So it's kind of an inverse of what's happened in the US. In the US, we've had mega cap kind of driving returns. In India, it's been small cap, a lot driven by domestic demand. That's really driven returns. But overall, there's good market breadth in India, much more than we have here in the US. As you know, there's been a big election. There was a big election in India. The results were announced in June, so about 6 weeks ago. It's the largest exercise in democracy worldwide. I mean, over 900 million people, eligible voters, 65% of whom will actually vote. So it is an important event for investors to look at, even though a lot of attention now is focused on the US elections. Some of these markets are important to look at in a broader portfolio.
Yeah, I mean, INDA, pretty great 52 weeks behind a pretty solid year. And it seems like also just kind of a trade that's like kind of out on its own, unique, kind of agnostic to some of the other stuff. There's like so much economic and macro focus, but it seems like kind of just the general growth of India just kind of has this sort of secular trend behind it that makes it stand out. Thanks for the update, Aniket. Appreciate the analysis.
Thank you.
Aniket Ullal, head of ETF data analytics at CFRA.